All right, well, this is going to be a bit of a messy one, but I did a thing. So, I am putting the 3.8 radiator in my 2.0. And before I go anywhere else, here is the radiator number. And basically, we're putting it onto the stock 2.0 shroud. So I'm just going to jump right into it. All right, so here's the stock 2.0 shroud, and you can see that I've already started some work on it because this connector is different from the 3.8 shroud, which I will swing over to right here. So I haven't seen anybody use the actual stock 3.8 shroud, and basically I didn't want to be wiring in different fans or dealing with an aftermarket shroud or anything like that. I just wanted to have something that was kind of quick and easy to swap it over. So on here you can see I started a little bit of work because I wanted to figure things out. So the wire colors are different and this connector is different. So I thought that I might get lucky and these pins would be similar in this connector as they are in this one. Unfortunately, because they're two totally different kinds, you can't just depin it and swap them over. Which is why I've cut this. So I've cut them at 3 different lengths so that when I solder and use heat shrink, we're going to be able to fit them in here, and we're not going to get a big bulk in one spot. So essentially, you don't need to do what I did and depin these. You can just cut everything flush and then solder on the new connector or use crimps, whatever you're most comfortable with, and then you will have a shroud that fits directly onto your new radiator, which after I have this done, I'll show you what it looks like, how I connected it, how nice everything will kind of bolt back up. Alright, so I made my connections here, and I tried using some of these larger diameter ones that I've used before, where it's just like a heat shrink, but these are such thick gauge wires that I had some problems trying to get everything to shrink and to flow into those spots. So my soldering's not the best on these, but it definitely wicked in between everything, and I'll have a good connection, so I just use a regular soldering iron, and I'm just going to tape them up. Obviously, I'm going to tape all 3 individually, and then I will tape over all of them, and then they go into this. So I don't think there will be a problem, but the way that I wired it is this black and red. If you trace it through here, it actually loops back around and goes to this resistor, I think. Or I think that's a resistor. I mean, I know the wire goes there. I think that's a resistor, though. And then, obviously, the 2 thicker gauge wires both go to the fan. I haven't looked up any wiring diagram, but I'm assuming that the black and red from the BK1 harness will go to this blue, which I'm assuming is power, and then the solid black from this one, which I'm assuming is ground, goes to the solid black from the BK1 connector. So I'm going to go ahead, tape those up, just assume they're going to be right, and if everything works when it's all back together, then we'll know that that's the correct wiring, and if not, I will update later on. Alright, so I skipped a little bit of stuff that happened here, but I'll go over all of it. That basically I have this just kind of mocked up into position. So I had to actually, when I was mocking it up, make sure that the intercooler pipe clears obviously when the manifold is on here and everything, and I made a couple changes to my manifold, so I had to pressure test it. But basically, so this is the stock upper radiator hose. I'm not going to pull it out from where I have it wedged in here, but it does fit on this location. But one of the things that I wanted to touch on first is that these mounting locations for the BK2 were actually tilted like farther back than they are for the BK1s. So what that means is that if they are tilted farther back, it's going to try and move the radiator closer. And if I take that cover off, you have to have the condenser mounted obviously to your radiator. And because they also changed the core support here, or the radiator support. So what that means is that once the condenser is mounted, when you try and push everything up flush, you get an interference and you can't mount it correctly using these stock location bolts. So this is basically what you can see, is that it's not in the correct position. So what I've done is I've actually, and I've removed the bushing that's in here. And I can show you how I remove that. And what I've done is I've 3D printed new brackets that utilize the same bushing that's in here, which is why I've removed it, and then it will mount there. It is quite a bit of a challenge to get the AC lines to clear. So I didn't show this process, but basically what I've done is all the way up to the weld for this pin, I've just rounded everything off. And then I still have to take the radiator back out in order to get some of the stuff with the mounting a little bit better. But you can see I have the 3.8 shroud in here. If you go the same route that I did with using the 3.8 shroud, you'll have to make clearances here for the what do you call it, for the hose on the coolant tank to be able to pass through here. And so I drilled 2 different holes also, so this bracket normally comes out a lot farther and it won't clear the intercooler pipe. So I had to cut it off, and then I use this hole here, which I think is maybe about a 1/2 inch back, maybe a little bit more. And so the coolant tank will align into that one, and then these mounting points, because for the 3.8, they stick out a lot further. I had to cut them off, and I'm just going to zip tie it for now, because once you cut them off, you can't, it's just a through hole, so you can't screw into it anymore. The other thing is, you'll see I've removed a lot of the material out from these ribs, and I have a very low profile bolt, so that allows the coolant reservoir to mount as close as possible. So I'm using the stock mounting points, so the intercooler for the BK1 normally fits in there, so you keep those same bushings and it mounts into those. But I think that if you had a BK2 fan shroud, I think that it would sit exactly where it needs to in the CSF radiator and mount up. So you can see this one mounts up perfect. And we have clearance to everything just like you would on the stock one. So the benefit is I can just plug straight into this, and now I don't need to do anything. I don't need to spend money on an aftermarket fan shroud and put in any relays or do anything like that. I just use all the stock wiring, just utilize the fan. Maybe it's not as pretty with being low profile and all that, but I was trying to save a little bit of money by getting this, because I think I picked this up for like 50 or 60 bucks from somebody locally who was parting out their car. So the last thing is, when you are doing this mounting, so I created this little aluminum bracket, and it actually has a little zigzag. What's really difficult to see is on the radiator, I actually had to take my ball peen hammer and basically hammer in a little dent into, because otherwise the condenser isn't going to clear. So if you don't run AC, if you have the AC gone, then this radiator will bolt up using the factory mounts and everything. It'll fit up just fine. But if you have your AC in here, that's what's going to cause you the clearance problems. Because I have to pull this out again, I will show in a little bit better detail what it looks like, how I had to make some of those indentations. And the reason that you have to indent it is so that you can create that mounting point that moves it forward, because otherwise this angled piece will interfere with the end tank. And the reason it interferes is because these end tanks are bigger, and the radiator in general is just bigger than the stock one. So you wanted to get it close enough so that this little foam strip can can contact it. That way when the airflow comes in, it will go through here instead of wanting to leak around the sides as well. So when I pull it out, I'll show you what it looks like. I already have my 3D printed mount that I did with the isolator or grommet, whatever you want to call it, in here. So this is kind of what it looks like. Other than being able to see the lines from 3D printing, it looks like a pretty OEM application. And I did print this out of nylon. And the reason that I printed it out of nylon is because most of the plastics that are in the car are actually printed from nylon. And I thought you could see it on here, but this one doesn't appear to be labeled the same way. Anyway, normally if you are taking apart some of the any of the plastics that are on here, if you ever see something that says like PA6 or PA11, PA12, that PA, what it means is polyamide, which is a nylon. And if you see anything that says like GF after it, it means that it's glass filled, which is like a fiberglass, which will reinforce the plastic. So here's what I did, printed ones, and then I'll show you how to pull these grommets out and that I put them in here. Because if anybody does this swap, I took measurements for the brackets, and I can make the mounting brackets and these, and basically make a kit for you so that you can drop it in. But all right, I'll get this pulled out and show you the modifications that I had to do in order to make it fit. And with these being tilted back, like I mentioned before, you can actually see just slightly that it is leaned back just a little bit. But I chose this as doing it this way because then you don't have to modify the mounting below. So I didn't have to make a new grommet or anything like that. We just used the factory mounts, and then we're just making a slight update to this mount right here. So able to make it look pretty OEM, but let's go to the next part. Okay, so I've got the radiator out of the car now, and you can see a little bit better the bracket that I made. Basically, you bolt it in to where the 3.8 condenser would go, because the mounting points are different. And I just took my ball peen hammer, heated it up, and just kind of folded it in. So, I mean, this is such a thick wall, and it wasn't welded on this. They bend it along this seam. So I'm not really concerned about their pressure-wise, anything like that. It's not really going to impede flow or anything. And then obviously you have to do it where the tab is normally at the bottom. And then it's the same thing on this side. So to get these locations, literally all I did was you just throw it into the car, and then you look at where they are, and then I put a Sharpie and I kind of measured them out. So I'll show you what I'm doing for these bottom mounts, because normally the way that it works, I'm not sure if I can get a good view in here. The way that this normally is this is one where it just slips into like a U groove, and obviously that doesn't line up anymore, so I just drilled a hole through this tab. I used a rivet, and now this will slide into that bottom U groove, and then the top will bolt in just like it normally will. So all this really is doing is just kind of extending that down, and I did it for both sides, and then that'll bolt into place again using this. And the reason these are dented in a little bit is to allow clearance for the condenser, how it comes off. So like I said earlier, I measured these brackets because they're different for each side, plus the lower ones. So basically I can put together a kit if anybody wants to do this, where all you have to do is I can get you the mounts and then your 2.0 condenser. will bolt up to the 3.8 radiator. Oh, one thing I didn't talk about before is that these mounts on the bottom, I also took these and I just ground them down until they went right up to the weld. And the reason is because these are so wide, they were just hitting the frame rails, so it made it really hard to move it in and out of the car. But now that I have everything in place, all I'm going to do is I'm going to leave these like finger tight, and I will I'll just drop it in there and then bolt up that, and then I should be good to go. As you can see, I got it all bolted in here with the new mounts on each side, and everything sits up nice and close. This is a oh, what do you call it? Just a little aftermarket cover, so I don't have the stock snorkel, but it'll give you an idea that everything gets covered up pretty nice. So it looks pretty OEM. It doesn't really, the radiator doesn't really extend past this edge, so it should look pretty close to the way it would from the factory. And so like I showed earlier, I have the 3.8 fan shroud, but I've got that the BK1 connector, so I can just plug this right in. And we'll see it'll just drop right into place. So the reason that I have the BK2 fan shroud is because the mounting points are different. So should drop right in. All right, there we go. So 3.8 fan shroud, and I think I showed it before, but in order to get all the clearances that I need for the coolant tank, I just have a really low profile Allen head over here. And now with the stock connector, it'll just pop into that spot, and I don't know if I can do this with one hand. Oh, there we go. Look at that. So fan should be in there, and then this will be the last part. Well, I can't find these little places for it to pop in. There we go. So there you go. That's kind of, we're right above it. It's about as good as it gets for now. You can kind of see down there that we have like an extra 6 inches of height to the radiator. So that'll be really nice, because, and then on top of it just being bigger in every way, got a lot more cooling capacity. So this is the stock 2.0 coolant reservoir, and I'm going to try and with one hand get it put into place here. There we go. So I'm just going to set this down, but you can see that since this is a 3.8 radiator, or sorry, the fan is for the 3.8, these are the mounting points that I had to cut off. So basically all I did was I drilled a hole through the side of these, and I'm just going to run a zip tie into it. Not perfect mounting, but for the hassle of everything that I did. So like I said before, this the stock coolant hose will fit just fine on here. And then for the bottom, what I did was I went and got this S-shape hose. I'll show you the part number. There we go. So Dayco C71695, and essentially what we're going to do is we're going to cut a couple inches off of each of the straight ends, and then one end will go on here, and then the other end will go around to that other one. But I will have to trim these up, and then in the next clip I'll show you how much I trimmed off of there, and that'll be the final thing. Okay, so I've got this hose all trimmed up. So just to give you a quick look, normally this is what the, let's see, can I get a little bit more light? This is what the hose would have been, and it would obviously go higher than the current radiator. So basically this piece going to give you a further reach down. And what I did was on this side, it looks like it has a bit of a tighter bend than this one. So I essentially just measured the furthest, or sorry, from where it looks like it straightens out, the distance that I would need to cover that barb on the radiator. So this is what I cut off. It's pretty much exactly 2 inches. We'll see if I can balance everything here. But yeah, so there you go. It's pretty much right on 2 inches. And I'll see if I can throw it on with one hand here. And then I just took this little sleeve here off of the stock radiator hose because it's really close and it's going to be touching the intercooler pipes. So because of this hose, you can actually reuse these clamps if you want to. Otherwise, you can get just some plain old hose clamps. There we go. So you can see it's basically going to be touching that hose, maybe a very small gap if you can do it, but very close fit to the frame rails. But anyway, so yeah, it'll sit approximately there. And so there you go, clears over there. I don't have my manifold yet, but I did put this on here, and because I'm going to run a larger throttle body, I even have a spacer, and everything clears on this side as well. Okay, here's just a quick mock-up. Basically what I have to do is this coolant tank can't be in there. I have to lift it out, and then you can get your intercooler pipe in here. But you can see, like, you have just enough clearance to get past the pulley and everything that you need. So I'll have to get my manifold back on, but obviously it's all bolted in. Looks pretty OEM, if you ask me, which wasn't necessarily what I was going for, but at least the fit up is good now. So like I mentioned earlier, if any of you guys are interested, just email me or comment on the video, and we'll see if we can get some kits made up if people are interested. Otherwise, you can kind of look at what I've done and make your own.